So it's a big family-oriented day of activities on the lawn at Kenmore, from story time to crafts to educational stations. There'll be opportunities for families to picnic on the lawn. You can take tours of our brand new exhibit where we're standing right now. The house will be open. So it'll be a great family-friendly day of fun and unusual activities at Kenmore.
So it's a centennial, but the Fielding Lewis and all, they were more than a centennial.
They were much more than a centennial ago.
So what are we centennialing?
We are centennialing, if that's a word,
I know.
the saving of Kenmore from demolition in 1922. So Kenmore was actually, believe it or not, slated to be demolished to make way for an apartment building in the early 1920s.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that usually really shocks people. It's hard to believe that that this beautiful house could have fallen into such a state of disrepair that anyone would even think about tearing it down. But that was the situation that it was facing in the 20s. And it was actually a group of concerned local ladies who banded together to decide they were going to save Kenmore, and they did just that. They formed a DAR chapter that had its sole purpose as fundraising to purchase Kenmore from the consortium of businessmen who owned it at the time, and then that spun off into the Kenmore Association, which eventually completed the purchase of the property, dedicated it as a national shrine, opened it to the public, and kept it open for the next 50, 60 years before the Kenmore Association transitioned into the organization we know today as the George Washington Foundation. So over the course of a century, Kenmore has been open and operating as a museum.
What a great story, though.
It really is.
And looking around here, it seems like you've got a lot of artifacts.
We do. This was a really exciting opportunity for us to be able to display a lot of the things that we don't normally get to display, because we talk about Betty and Fielding Lewis and that 18th century Revolutionary War era at Kenmore, which is our primary focus. But for this year, for our centennial year in 2022, we really wanted to draw the attention to that early group of women, the forerunners of our regents, and all the efforts that they made to save Kenmore. And so we've got an amazing array of things in the collection that pertain to that time period, and they're all out for people to see now.
What heroes they are, though, when you think about it.
It was remarkable. I mean, first of all, historic preservation was sort of in its infancy at the time, so there was no map for them to follow. There was no success story for them to look at to figure out how to do this. They really just had to come up with it on their own, and they realized that a lot of the skills they had for operating in society as women were actually really applicable to being activists for saving a historic site. So doing fundraising, doing all sorts of marketing campaigns, having events, hosting parties, and convincing other people to have parties, to get out the word, to write letters, to secure donations, to really make Kenmore's plight a well-known thing. And they were very successful both here in the Fredericksburg area and really across the country. They had a nationwide campaign to get the word out.
Here's a crazy thought that just occurred to me. If this hadn't been saved, if the George Washington Foundation hadn't come about, maybe Kenmore, maybe Ferry Farm, maybe these are all just little road signs that this used to be here.
That's entirely possible, that the only thing we would know about either of the two sites would be what you could fit on a plaque beside the side of the road. And that's kind of a scary thought to think about, that when you save one site, you might be saving a lot of other things. You never know.
So of this exhibit here, what are a couple of your favorite things?
Oh gosh, we've got so many interesting things. Right here at the beginning of the exhibit, you can see we have these text panels around the room that sort of explain different moments in the story of saving Kenmore, and we have them done like newspapers from the early 1920s, because one of the things that we discovered in our research for the exhibit is that the original ladies who banded together to save Kenmore were avid scrapbookers. They kept hundreds of scrapbooks that we now have in the collection, and most of them are filled with newspaper clippings from the time period. So we had tons of information to glean from all of these newspapers. We actually have one of their big scrapbooks on display over here on the table under this case. This is a scrapbook that was entitled 1922 Restoration, and it's just absolutely packed full, and you can see how thick it is, of newspaper clippings, of photographs, of letters. We actually have some of the letters spread out on the table here from various famous folks who were involved in raising money for Kenmore. And so the scrapbooks, I think, were probably one of the most fun things that we got to work with and put out on display. And then also, right here in this area as well, we have this, you can see, very old-style mailing crate full of glass magic lantern slides. That was sort of the slideshow forerunner of the 1920s.
Wow.
And what the ladies did was they created a set of magic lantern slideshows, these glass slides, in these boxes, and they would send them all over the country to DAR chapters or other civic organizations so that they could learn about Kenmore and about its plight and about the efforts to save it. And we actually even have the original magic lantern sitting over there that they sent with the slideshow. That's a really cool piece. So they would pack up that big, heavy magic lantern, which is basically the light box, and the set of glass slides, and they would ship them by train all over the country to be viewed by these organizations. That was one of the ways they got out the word.
Wait, that though, they were serious about this.
They were serious.
And I mean, they were really using some high-tech things.
It was high-tech at the time. This was really cutting edge. And so even the thought that they could send this incredibly heavy light box, incredibly heavy glass slides in crates by train, and that was the level of work that they were willing to put in to get the word out. So it was really quite incredible. And then, actually, if we go over here into the next display case, you can see another scrapbook there in the back. That one is actually a scrapbook that was compiled by Marion McDaniel, who was one of the early regents, who accompanied Miss Annie, as we call her, who was one of our founders, on a 7-week-long road trip of the Western United States in 1949, basically to meet with DAR chapters and civic organizations and historical societies all over the Western United States to tell them about Kenmore. And they kept a scrapbook of their journey. And for 7 weeks, driving in a car by themselves all over the Western United States, that to me is just amazing. And they met all kinds of really interesting people, did all kinds of really interesting things, and now we have the scrapbook here in the collection. And just in front of it, there's a letter here. You can see the title, Aubrey Watson, on top of it. That was the cover for a script that was written and eventually produced into a full-scale 20-minute movie about Kenmore and its history that the ladies had produced in the 1940s. When the Magic Lantern slideshow became a little passé, by the time we get to the 1940s, movies are the thing.
Yeah.
So they had a movie made about Kenmore, and they had that shipped all over the country as well to spread the word. So they were serious about this.
This is quite a story.
It's an amazing story. It really is. And these were women who had no background in this, had no idea what they were getting into, but they found a way.
And they were serious, and it took some time. It wasn't like this was just a 6-month kind of thing.
No, it was, they started their efforts in the spring of 1922. They made the first payment in the fall of 1922. They finished the effort to actually purchase the house in 1925. And then they had to figure out how to restore the house. They had to figure out how to furnish it. They had to hire staff and get it open to run as a museum. That took them into the Great Depression. So the bulk of the fundraising that they actually did to open Kenmore to the public happened at the height of the Great Depression.
It's a great story.
It really is.
Again, Saturday, 10 to 2.
10 to 2. You have lots of fun. Come to Kenmore. Spend some time on the lawn. Bring a picnic. We have all sorts of activities. The one I'm looking forward to most is an activity where you actually can make your own block printed wallpaper, just like the style that's in Kenmore now. And if you haven't been through Kenmore to see the wallpaper, it's amazing. And you can do that on Saturday as well.
This is the start of a whole year of things here, but really this is a chance to really get to know Kenmore in a way I think that most of us don't know it.
Absolutely. This is an entirely different side of the story of Kenmore, and if you are not familiar with Kenmore, this is a great way to start at the beginning. And that's true, an entire year of Centennial-related events coming up, so stay tuned.
Kenmore.org.
kenmore.org. Hope to see you there.